The Universal Law of Non-Judgment, a wisdom teaching from the Intergalactic Alliance of Light Beings. Have you ever wondered if Source really judges us? That is what we've been taught to believe, but is it actually true? For those with high ideals about how life should be, the law of non-judgment offers us a chance to redirect our discontent into inspiration. When we over-identify with what we think should happen, we can become entangled with the energies of whatever we are trying to repel or correct, often in the name of being right or achieving our ideal outcome. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. This is how we are taught to compare or to become aware of what is different from everything or everyone else. And this training starts before school ever begins. Add to that any ideals you inherited from family, friends, and faith, and it is easy to see how we as humans have been encouraged to judge ourselves and others as a way of managing responses and actions based on someone else's invisible moral gauge. But who sets the standard? Who decides what is good and what is bad? We know what is comfortable and uncomfortable, and that is where the law of non-judgment invites us to consider the benefits of reminding ourselves that Source does not judge us. Therefore, it is natural to give ourselves the freedom from judgment of self and others. Judgment is a human invention, a means to compare, contrast, or give justification for competition, not cooperation. It is a human invention, not a Source invention. A Source cannot judge one aspect of itself without judging all aspects of itself. This is a universal truth. Source is love, and in all things. We as humans have been gifted with free will, including the freedom to choose to believe that we are separate from Source for the time that we are incarnate, as that ability to pretend is lost when we return to pure energy form. The universal law of non-judgment offers we, the evolving soul, a way to maintain our authentic self-esteem as opposed to conjuring perceived esteem. Have you ever noticed when you judge yourself harshly for either poor performance or poor results, you actually feel worse and less inspired instead of more capable and ready to try again? The same goes for when you judge another's choices, actions, or behavior instead of course-correcting to fit with your highest ideals or outcomes. Most folks react with equal and forceful judgment in return. Judge not, lest ye be judged, suddenly takes on a new meaning from this new perspective, as this truth sums up the laws of physics and spirit, proving it more than just a quaint saying. For when we judge another as not good enough, we are actually judging Source in another form. The discomfort felt beneath the righteousness of standing in full judgment of another is really our soul's voice trying to remind us of one universal truth. Source is in all things. And when you consider that the energy signal you put out comes back to you times 3, when you judge another, you awaken judgment energies that come to you in return. This is done for the purpose of maintaining balance, but can only be achieved if both parties participate in the judgment process. There is, of course, another way to go about your contrast awareness. The first step to setting yourself free from the patterns of judgment of self or others is to recognize that this is not an ideal world. This is a real world, and ideal is not what we came here for. This is a field of reality where each evolving soul is given the freedom to be fully aware or in full denial of their infinite and undeniable connection to Source, Here, we get to experience the illusion of individuation for a time. In the fields of reality beyond the free will zone, this pretending is not possible, as every spark of the divine is aware of that infinite connection. That is why we tell you judgment is human-made, not heaven-made. The universal law of non-judgment reminds us that Source didn't invent morals, people did. The truth is, Source cannot judge one aspect of itself without judging all aspects of itself. And it is not possible because Source is all love. What we here on earth might consider evil, wicked, or bad is simply the terms that we humans use to describe the total absence, denial, or resistance of this one all-encompassing truth, that Source is in everything. Our experience here is akin to resistance training to aid our spiritual development. We create a constructed self to help us manage the vibrational fields of the shadowland vibrations that we are born into, and it is this aspect of our character that has been trained to compare and inevitably judge everything. In other words, judgment comes from our ego, not our soul. The shadowland vibrations are of a lower and slower quality. Emotions like jealousy, animosity, competition, anger, disparity, confusion, conformity, caution, fear, and hate are the tones used to create from, and it taints all creation with the brush of self-doubt. The heartland vibrational fields reflect emotions like happiness, contentment, gratitude, fun, freedom, fair play, friendliness, compassion, cooperation, and love. Each time you judge another, you drop your vibrational frequency down into shadowland vibrations, awakening your inner judge. When you awaken your inner judge, you also awaken your inner victim, your inner perpetrator, and your inner rescue hero. In order to fully ascend out of the 3D shadowland vibrations, we must find a way to retire our inner judge, remove our inner perpetrator, release our inner victim, and redirect our inner rescue hero. This does not mean you must stop being aware of what you feel is good and healthy for you and what is not. It means you're being asked to apply discernment instead of judgment moving forward in your experience. Discernment is honoring your intuitive and pragmatic knowings of what or whom is safe and healthy for you to engage with along your spiritual evolutionary path, and what you no longer require yourself to experience in order to learn and to grow. Judgment is believing you have the right to choose what is best, healthy, or needed for another's growth and lessons, which is the law of responsibility, not chosen. Learning to recognize the difference between high ideals and impossible standards will save you a lot of time, effort, and disappointment. Remember, when our need for outside approval outweighs our desire to be authentic, it's our sign that we are out of alignment with the law of non-judgment, because overriding our natural expression for the approval of another is the vibrational equivalent of self-judgment. Here's a wonderful mantra to remember the next time someone invites you to judge yourself against another's standards. Says who? Too often we can give away our true authority to choose for ourselves because we believe it is the most loving thing to do to honor another. But loving to who? How is denying your right to choose good for anyone? What if there's an easier way to stay in alignment with your highest truths? Our goal as conscious evolutionaries is not to drag another into the light. It is simply to embody and be the light. The vibrational frequency of judgment blocks how we receive and process source solutions and higher self wisdom, it automatically puts us into defense mode as we seek to prove another wrong in order to feel justified in our belief. Discernment, on the other hand, helps us to be honest with ourselves. It helps us to recognize and accept known patterns will bring known results, despite our wish for more ideal outcomes. Recognizing what we want and don't want for our experience and simply owning it is discernment, which is working the law of non-judgment in our favor and under our full authority and responsibility. It only becomes judgment when we seek to support our ego by trying to prove another wrong in order that we may prove ourselves right. Often this approach comes with a shallow victory, if any at all. That which we focus our hearts and minds upon will stay in place longer. When we focus on distasteful behavior, we begin to create a similar vibrational frequency, becoming another form of the very thing we are rebelling against, accepting another's truth. To assist you with shifting any judgment you may currently be working through, we offer you this simple exercise. Take a moment and consider how you measure up against your own standards. Whose yardstick do you use, yourself's or another's? Based on your own judgment of yourself, do you feel you're succeeding or failing at life? What are your qualifications for someone being considered a good or bad person in your books? What qualifies as good and bad in your internal moral compass? Do you see yourself as a good person or a bad person, and why? How do you feel when another judges you accurately? How do you feel when another judges you unfairly? What is your trigger for feeling judged in the first place? What parts of your character do you like, and why? And what parts of your character don't you like, and why? Where did this dislike originate from? Is this dislike or judgment of yourself accurate? What would it take to simply accept this part of yourself instead of deny it or defend it? What would it feel like to release it? Next, we'd like you to imagine being teleported to a room where this aspect of your character is waiting for you. What do they look like? Are they happy or sad, and why? Now, ask this aspect of self what purpose it thinks it serves you. Now, ask yourself, is this service really helping you or hindering you? Is this belief or idea about yourself still serving you? Imagine moving over to where this aspect of self stands. Imagine taking this part of you into a deep embrace as you say these words. I thank you for your service. I love you for your service. I have grown through your service. I release you now from that service. I accept you now as whole. I accept you now as ever evolving. I reassign you now away from judgment and into discernment. I am now free from judgment from myself. I am now free from judgment from others. I am now free to love myself as Source loves me in totality. I am now free to love and be loved as my eternal expression of me. Bring your focus back to the space where you're resting. Breathe gently and feel the shift move through all aspects of your system. And know, as you ask it, so it must be. We thank you for joining us for this examination of the universal law of non-judgment. Join us next time when we will take a look at the universal law of flexibility. Until then, shine on, dear Earth Star Angel. On behalf of the Intergalactic Alliance of Light Beings, I am Chimera. Namaste.